The human delegation had never traveled this far from Earth before. The starship Endeavour glided silently through the black expanse of space, its silver hull reflecting the distant stars. Inside, Captain Elia's heart stood in the observation deck, watching the approaching planet. It was larger than Earth in diameter and bathed in soft, golden light from its twin suns. Around him, the crew murmured in awe. Some whispered about alien worlds and unknown dangers, while others simply stared, mesmerized. "This is it," Elias said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. Zetheria. Mountains curved in impossibly sharp angles, and rivers ran in colors that Earth had never seen. Humans had come to Zetheria as representatives of their species, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as participants in a tradition unlike anything they had ever known. The Zetherians were a proud warrior race, famous across this sector of space for their strength, strategy, and strict codes of honor. Humans were newcomers, weaker by Zetherian standards, but clever and adaptable in ways that no one could predict. Among the humans, a young warrior named Taran adjusted the straps of his uniform. At just 19, he was the youngest on the delegation. His hair was dark and unkempt, his eyes bright and curious, and his small frame made him look almost fragile compared to the other humans. Yet there was a quiet confidence about him, a calmness that set him apart. While others fidgeted with nerves, he simply observed, noting details that might help him in the coming trials. Taran had never expected to travel so far from home. He had trained diligently, not for glory, but because he believed that preparation mattered. And now, standing on the threshold of a world unlike any he had ever known, he wondered what challenges awaited. The Zetherian delegation met the humans at the landing platform. They were taller than humans, with sleek bodies and bright, expressive eyes. Their movements were graceful, precise, and commanding. At their center walked the Zetherian princess, Lyra. She radiated authority and calm judgment. Her eyes scanned the human group, sharp and observant, noting each individual as if she could see into their hearts. Lyra's gaze lingered on the youngest warrior. Taran felt a sudden heat rise to his cheeks. He was not used to attention from anyone, let alone an alien princess. He straightened, trying to appear confident, though his heart raced. "Welcome, humans," Lyra said in a voice both melodic and commanding. "You are here to demonstrate your courage, intelligence, and spirit. Your strength will be tested and your hearts observed. Only those who show true character will be remembered. Prepare yourselves." Mountains stretched endlessly, rivers wound in impossible patterns, and the sky was alive with colors that shifted as the suns moved. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. When the first trial began, the humans were led into a wide arena. It was open but enclosed by shimmering energy barriers that glowed faintly. Across the arena, Zetherian warriors waited, each poised and ready. The challenge was simple in theory. Humans and Zetherians were to navigate a complex course filled with puzzles, obstacles, and tests of coordination. But simple in theory never meant easy in practice. The first obstacle was a series of shifting platforms that moved with precise timing. Most humans hesitated, unsure of the rhythm. Taran studied the platforms for a moment, noticed the pattern, and then stepped lightly from one to the next. His movement was smooth, deliberate, and confident. He helped others by calling out timing cues, earning grateful nods from his teammates. Even the older warriors began to notice him. Next came a puzzle, a large, intricate mechanism that required logic, creativity, and speed. Many of the human team froze, overwhelmed by the complexity. Taran crouched, examining the mechanisms with a careful eye. Slowly, he adjusted levers, rotated wheels, and pressed sequences of symbols. Step by step, the puzzle began to respond. Within minutes, it clicked into place. The humans cheered quietly, the Zetherians observed in silence, their eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Lyra watched from her elevated platform, her gaze sharp. Most of the older humans had relied on brute force, but this young human, Taran, had shown patience, insight, and calm reasoning under pressure. She tilted her head slightly, intrigued. As the trial continued, the humans faced simulated hazards. Narrow paths over glowing energy streams, doors that opened only with cooperation, and obstacles that required both courage and quick thinking. Taran moved carefully but decisively, guiding others when necessary, volunteering when a risky step required someone to take initiative. At no point did he rush recklessly, yet his choices were always bold. By the end of the trial, it was clear who had stood out. Older humans had performed well, but their reliance on strength and speed made them falter in unexpected ways. Taran, small and seemingly fragile, had completed every challenge with precision and confidence. Lyra descended to the arena floor as the humans finished. Her eyes searched for the one who had impressed her most. She found him almost immediately, the youngest human standing quietly at the edge, watching his teammates with a calm smile. She stepped closer, the other humans stepping back instinctively. "You have done well," she said, her voice carrying across the arena. "You have shown not just courage, but intelligence, patience, and a heart that considers others. These are qualities that cannot be taught. You rely on thought and care. This makes you noteworthy." This human, Taran, had qualities that reminded her of the ancient Zetherian tales of heroes who led not just with muscle, but with mind and heart. That evening, the humans gathered in their quarters, sharing stories of the day's events. Taran was quiet, reflecting on what had happened. He had not sought attention, only done what seemed right. Yet somehow that had made a difference. He felt a mix of pride and humility, aware that there were greater challenges still ahead. As the sun set over Zetheria, painting the alien sky in shades of orange and violet, Taran sat by the window once more. He could see the mountains and glowing rivers stretching into the distance, a reminder that he was far from home. Yet he also felt something else, a sense of purpose, a spark of possibility. Here on this distant planet, humans were not the weakest, nor the most insignificant. With courage, cleverness, and heart, they could stand among the greatest of races. And somewhere Princess Lyra was watching, making judgments that would shape not only the trials ahead, but the future of humans and Zetherians alike. Taran did not know what awaited him next. There would be challenges, tests, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in his young life, he felt that being human, imperfect, curious, brave was enough. The night deepened, the twin moons rising over the alien horizon, and Taran slept with a mind full of dreams. Dreams not just of trials and contests, but of connection, understanding, and the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, he could rise to a place even the stars themselves might notice. And in the palace above, Lyra pondered quietly, a small, unspoken thought forming in her mind. This one, this youngest human, might be the one who changes everything. The next morning, the humans awoke to the sound of soft chiming from the palace corridors. The twin suns of Zetheria had barely risen, painting the skies with shades of gold and violet. Outside, the world was alive with movement. Birds with translucent wings flitted across glowing rivers, and strange creatures scuttled among the glowing foliage. The humans gathered in the training arena once again, this time for the second trial. "This trial will test your ability to face challenges under pressure," Princess Lyra announced from her elevated platform. Her voice carried calm authority, and every word drew the humans' attention. "It is not enough to be strong or clever alone. You must demonstrate courage, teamwork, and quick thinking. Only those who succeed in all three will move forward." It was a vast clearing, dotted with enormous, irregular boulders that seemed to shift subtly as if alive. At the far side, a wall of energy pulsed softly. The instructions were simple: reach the other side while avoiding the hazards. At first, it seemed easy, but soon the ground beneath them shifted unexpectedly. Small geysers of harmless plasma erupted in random patterns. Most humans froze, unsure where to step. Some older warriors tried to rush through, relying on their strength to leap over hazards, but they stumbled, forced to retreat. Taran crouched low and studied the pattern of the geysers. They erupted in a rhythm, though subtle, and he could anticipate the timing. He called out to a teammate, "Step left now, then wait 2 counts." Slowly, he guided his team through the first section, using observation and timing rather than brute force. Princess Lyra watched intently, her brow furrowed in approval. Unlike the other humans, Taran seemed calm, almost at ease, as if the challenge excited him rather than intimidated him. She made a note to observe him more closely in the coming trials. Once through the first section, the humans faced the puzzle segment. This was a room filled with interlocking mechanisms, walls covered in symbols and shifting plates. The challenge was to align the symbols in the correct order to open the next gate. Several humans tried forceful methods first, pressing buttons randomly, pulling levers without thinking. The mechanisms resisted, shifting and clicking mockingly. Taran took a deep breath and approached carefully. He examined the symbols, noticed a pattern repeating across the walls, and began working methodically. He moved from lever to lever, adjusting the symbols in logical sequence. Slowly, a low hum indicated progress. One by one, the mechanisms clicked into place. When the final lever slid into position, the gate opened. A cheer went up from the humans, though they had to lower their voices as Lyra watched silently. "You have learned something valuable here," Lyra said after the trial. "Patience and observation can achieve what force alone cannot. Keep this in mind for the challenges ahead." From a hidden crevice, a creature emerged. It was unlike anything Taran had seen before, roughly the size of a human, with multiple limbs ending in soft, padded tips and eyes that glowed faintly. Its movements were slow but deliberate. Though it was not dangerous by Zetherian standards, it was enough to startle the humans. Most of the older warriors hesitated. They whispered among themselves, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Taran stepped forward calmly. "It doesn't seem aggressive," he said quietly, studying the creature's movements. "We just need to guide it back to the pen." The creature sniffed briefly, then stepped toward him. Taran guided it gently, talking softly to keep his teammates calm. Step by step, the humans followed, learning to work together rather than act individually. Princess Lyra observed from above, a small smile playing at her lips. Humans were not known for their empathy in her experience. Most species would have panicked, attacked, or fled. Taran's approach, calm, clever, and kind, was unusual. He did not rely on strength, yet he led the humans successfully, earning their trust and cooperation. Once the creature was safely guided back, the humans were allowed to rest again. They sat together, sharing water and stories. Even the older warriors looked at Taran with respect. He had not boasted, had not demanded attention, yet his leadership had been evident. Lyra, meanwhile, returned to her private observation chamber. She reviewed every movement, every choice the humans had made. Among them, Taran stood out not just for skill, but for spirit. He had the qualities that the Zetherians valued but seldom found: intelligence, courage, and care for others. That evening, the humans were invited to a ceremonial gathering. The palace halls were vast, with glowing walls that shifted like water. Tables were laid with food that sparkled with alien colors, and fountains flowed with liquids that glimmered under the lights. Zetherian warriors moved gracefully, interacting with the humans with polite curiosity. Taran walked among them quietly, listening and observing. He noted the ways Zetherians communicated without words: gestures, subtle changes in posture, expressions that conveyed respect or challenge. He found it fascinating, not intimidating. He even shared small stories about Earth with some of the younger Zetherians, making them laugh with tales of human inventions and quirks. Lyra approached him, her presence quiet but commanding. "You are different," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. "You see, humans are clever, yes, but you care more than most. That is rare. It is not enough to be strong. One must also have a heart that guides action. That is why I am watching you." When the twin moons rose over the horizon, the humans retired to their quarters. Taran stood by the window once more, looking at the glowing rivers and the mountains that seemed to touch the stars. He reflected on the day's trials and the unexpected moments that had revealed who he was. For the first time, he realized that being human, clever, compassionate, brave, was enough to stand among the greatest warriors of the galaxy. And somewhere in the palace, Lyra observed silently, her mind tracing the path this young human would take in the coming trials. Taran went to sleep with a quiet resolve. He did not know what awaited tomorrow: more tests, more challenges, perhaps even dangers he could not foresee. But he knew this: he would face them not with recklessness, but with courage, intelligence, and heart. Those qualities had carried him this far. They would carry him farther still. And in the soft light of Zetheria's moons, the young human warrior dreamed of what lay ahead: a world full of challenges, friendships, and possibilities he had never imagined. The morning sun cast soft, golden light over Zetheria, reflecting off the crystal-clear rivers and glowing forests. The humans, still feeling the thrill and tension of the previous trials, gathered in the palace courtyard. Today was different. There would be no puzzles or physical tests, no sudden hazards or creatures to manage. Instead, the Zetherians had planned a cultural exchange, a chance for the humans to interact with the Zetherian people, learn their customs, and share their own. Captain Elias led his team forward, the humans moving carefully through the palace corridors. The walls shimmered with alien patterns, flowing like water under their touch. In every corner, Zetherians observed silently, their eyes curious but respectful. At the center of the courtyard, a long table had been prepared with food, art, and objects from Zetherian culture. Princess Lyra stood at the far end, her presence commanding but warm. She gestured for the humans to approach. "This day is not about strength or skill," she said. "It is about understanding. You are guests on our world. Learn what you can and show us the heart of humanity." The art depicted scenes of Zetherian history, heroes standing against impossible odds, celebrations of peace and unity, and the quiet beauty of their glowing forests. Taran moved slowly, taking everything in. He reached out to touch a carved figure of a Zetherian warrior, noting the intricate details. The figure's expression was calm yet strong, and Taran felt a strange sense of respect for the race that had created it. Nearby, a young Zetherian approached him. She was smaller than most, with soft lavender eyes and translucent wings that shimmered in the sun. "You are the human they watch closely," she said in perfect common, the universal language of this sector. Her voice was curious, not confrontational. Taran blinked. I don't know what you mean," he said politely. The Zetherian smiled faintly. "Princess Lyra finds you interesting. I have watched her observe you. You act with calm and care. On Zetheria, even small errors are punished. Yet you move with confidence, yet respect." Some were athletic contests designed for strength, while others tested memory or strategy. Taran observed quietly, noticing the patterns of how Zetherians approached challenges. Most relied on instinct and training. Humans, he realized, relied on reasoning, on adaptation, on careful thought. He approached Lyra later when the other humans were distracted by a small puzzle challenge. She was standing near a fountain, the water glowing faintly in rainbow colors. "You performed well in the previous trials," she said. "Not because you were the strongest, but because you acted with thought and heart. That is unusual among humans. We must think, adapt, and care for each other." The Zetherians listened, fascinated by the diversity and complexity of a world they had only heard about in legends. Taran spoke gently about his home. "We have oceans that stretch for miles," he said, "and forests full of life, but humans, we rely on each other. That is what makes us strong, not any one person alone." She could see why he had excelled in the trials. He understood balance, teamwork, and respect, qualities that Zetherians often overlooked in their obsession with power. The day passed with exchanges of stories, games, and demonstrations. Taran found himself explaining simple human inventions, from tools to ways of solving everyday problems. The Zetherians were fascinated, often laughing quietly at some of the clever, unusual solutions humans had developed over centuries. As the sun began to set, Lyra led Taran to a quiet terrace overlooking the glowing forests. The light reflected softly across his face, highlighting the determination and curiosity in his eyes. "You are different from what I expected," Lyra said. "I anticipated humans to rely on force and quick action. Yet you are careful, thoughtful, and brave when it matters. You show kindness in ways I have rarely seen. Only I have noticed fully. That is why I am observing you carefully. You are unusual." He did not yet understand how much this connection would grow, or what it would mean for him in the trials ahead. Meanwhile, among the humans, whispers began. The older warriors looked at Taran differently now, seeing his quiet courage and thoughtfulness. Even Captain Elias, usually reserved, gave him a nod of acknowledgement. The human delegation was beginning to understand that he was not only capable but remarkable in ways they had not anticipated. The evening ended with a peaceful meal in the palace halls. Lyra observed from a distance, her curiosity about the youngest human growing. She had seen him face challenges with courage and calm. She had seen him guide others without dominance. And now she had seen him connect with her world in ways the older humans had not. Taran, sitting with his team, felt a quiet pride but no arrogance. He understood that the trials were far from over. He had gained recognition, yes, but there was much to learn, much to face. And yet he felt a spark of hope, a belief that humanity, small and underestimated, could stand tall here among the Zetherians. As night fell and the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the palace, Taran found himself thinking of the day's lessons. He realized that courage was not just facing danger. It was speaking truth, helping others, and acting with thought. It was in kindness as much as in strength. And somewhere above him, in the palace chambers, Lyra reflected quietly on what she had observed. This young human had captured her attention not with feats of strength, but with the qualities that mattered most: heart, intelligence, and an unshakable calm in the face of challenge. Tomorrow, the trials would continue. There would be more tests, more ways to measure courage and skill. But today had revealed something important. Humans were not defined by size or strength alone. Even the youngest, the seemingly smallest, could shine when they acted with heart and mind together. Taran lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling that shimmered like liquid crystal. He felt a quiet sense of determination. He did not yet know what the next challenge would bring, but he was ready. He had learned that the trials were not only tests of skill, but of character. And his character, he now understood, could make a difference not just for himself, but for all humans on this distant world. The palace settled into quiet. The glow of the Zetherian moons reflected on the crystalline walls, bathing the human delegation in soft light. Taran closed his eyes and thought of the lessons of the day. He had faced fear, guided others, and shared his world with aliens. He had learned that even when small or underestimated, he could make a mark. And in the shadowed observation deck above, Lyra's thoughts lingered on him. There was a quiet certainty forming in her mind, a sense that this young human was special, perhaps unlike any being she had ever known. She did not yet know what the future would hold, but she was certain of one thing: he had captured her attention in a way that few could, not with strength alone, but with heart. The night deepened, and Zetheria's glowing forests reflected the moon's light. Taran slept soundly, unaware of how closely he had been watched, but confident in his choices. He had learned that being human, thoughtful, brave, compassionate, was enough to stand among the greatest. And in the quiet palace above, Lyra's gaze lingered on the horizon, her mind filled with questions, curiosity, and a growing anticipation for what tomorrow would reveal. The morning on Zetheria was crisp and clear, with the twin suns rising over the glowing rivers. The palace courtyard was filled with excitement, for today was the day of the grand contest. It was the final test, designed to measure not only strength and intelligence, but courage, teamwork, and heart. Humans and Zetherians alike gathered in the arena, anticipation buzzing in the air. Captain Elias led the human delegation into the arena. His team moved carefully, aware that this contest would be unlike anything they had faced before. Even the older humans, confident in their abilities, felt a surge of nervousness. They had heard stories of Zetherian contests where even seasoned warriors struggled. Taran, however, felt calm. He had learned to observe, to think, and to act with care. His confidence was quiet, steady. As they approached the arena, he noticed the massive structure before them. The course stretched for hundreds of meters, with shifting platforms, moving walls, and complex puzzles scattered throughout. Lyra watched from her elevated seat, her eyes scanning the crowd. She had been following Taran closely, and she noticed how he moved differently from the others. While most humans rushed or hesitated, Taran calculated, adjusted, and led. The contest began. Humans and Zetherians were separated into teams, each facing the same challenges but judged individually and collectively. The first section was a maze of shifting platforms over glowing energy streams. Zetherians leapt effortlessly, their movements precise and powerful. Humans hesitated, unsure of timing and stability. Taran crouched low, analyzing the patterns. "Wait 3 counts, then step left," he instructed a teammate. "Then follow me carefully." His voice was calm but firm, guiding the humans through the maze. One by one, they moved across, stumbling slightly at first but gaining confidence under his leadership. The Zetherians watched silently. Their expressions showed intrigue, for the humans were adapting in ways they did not expect. Strength alone would not complete this challenge. Observation, timing, and cooperation were equally important. The next section was a puzzle room. Symbols glowed on walls and floors, shifting in strange patterns. The challenge was to align the symbols correctly to open the gate to the next section. Most humans panicked, overwhelmed by complexity. Some tried brute force, others froze. Taran knelt and examined the symbols. He noticed the repeating patterns and subtle hints embedded in the design. Slowly, he adjusted levers and rotated panels, calling out instructions to teammates. One by one, the symbols aligned. The hum of the mechanisms filled the room, signaling success. The gate opened. Humans glanced at him with awe, their respect deepening. Lyra leaned forward slightly, her attention fixed on Taran. This young human had already demonstrated cleverness, courage, and teamwork, yet she knew the hardest part of the contest lay ahead. The final section was an obstacle course designed to test courage. Robots and holographic creatures simulated threats that required quick thinking rather than brute strength. Humans were expected to navigate, protect each other, and solve last-minute problems while under pressure. Chaos erupted as the trial began. Older humans struggled to coordinate while Zetherians moved flawlessly. Suddenly, a holographic creature appeared near the humans, moving unpredictably. Some froze, others panicked. Taran stepped forward. "Stay calm," he said. "It's not real, but it will react to fear. Move with me." He guided his teammates, showing them how to act decisively yet carefully. Step by step, they maneuvered around the creature, avoiding traps and reaching the next checkpoint. Lyra watched silently, impressed. Humans were not supposed to match Zetherians in agility or strength, yet Taran led them successfully through the challenges. His actions were not reckless. He considered every possibility and ensured the safety of his team. Halfway through, another test appeared, a wide chasm that seemed impossible to cross. Zetherians leapt across with ease. Humans hesitated, considering options. Taran examined the edges, noting ledges, hidden footholds, and subtle shifts in energy. "Use the ledges here and here," he instructed. "I'll go first, then help you one by one." His calm, methodical approach inspired confidence. Each human followed his lead, crossing the chasm safely. Even the older warriors acknowledged his skill quietly. Finally, they reached the last obstacle, a series of moving platforms suspended above glowing energy streams. Timing and trust were essential. Humans had to rely on each other to move forward. Taran positioned himself strategically, encouraging each teammate and adjusting their steps. One human stumbled, but Taran reached out, steadying them with a gentle grip. "Careful, we've got this," he said. His reassurance was enough to calm panic. Together, the humans crossed the final platforms, finishing the course successfully. The crowd erupted in applause, both human and Zetherian. Even the older Zetherians murmured with surprise and respect. Taran had led his team not by strength alone, but by courage, intelligence, and heart. Lyra stood and descended to the arena floor. Her gaze found Taran immediately. She moved closer, her steps quiet but deliberate. "You have done exceptionally well," she said. "Not because you were the fastest or the strongest, but because you led, thought, and cared for your team. That is rare among any species. Most would have rushed or panicked, but you led with thought and heart." The contest had not only tested skill and courage, but it had revealed the unique strength of humanity, intelligence, cooperation, and moral courage. Taran had shown that being the youngest or smallest did not matter. What mattered was the ability to think clearly, act decisively, and care genuinely for others. After the contest, Lyra led the humans to a quiet terrace overlooking the glowing forests. The suns had set, and the twin moons reflected silver light across the landscape. Taran looked out at the horizon, feeling a sense of pride and humility. He had done his best, but he also knew that this was only one step in a greater journey. "You have shown the best of humanity today," Lyra said softly. "Not through power alone, but through character. That is why I am certain of one thing." I don't know what to say." Around them, humans and Zetherians alike watched in silence, sensing that something significant had occurred. Princess Lyra, I am honored," Taran said finally. "I never expected, I never thought." That is rare, even among the greatest of warriors. Many had underestimated humans. Now they saw clearly that strength was not the only measure of greatness. Leadership, courage, and compassion mattered just as much. Taran looked at his teammates, their faces glowing with pride and amazement. He realized that the contest had not been about personal glory alone, but about demonstrating the potential of humanity. Even the youngest, the smallest, could shine when they led with heart. Lyra placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "You have exceeded all expectations," she said. "Tomorrow, we will celebrate not only your victory, but the beginning of something new, an understanding between our worlds, built on respect and courage." He had learned that courage was not just facing danger. It was guiding others, thinking clearly, and acting with care. Above them, in the palace chambers, Lyra reflected on what she had seen. This young human had proven himself not through brute force, but through heart and intelligence. She knew that his qualities would not only shape the contest, but the future of the bond between humans and Zetherians. The night deepened. Taran lay in his quarters, staring at the glowing ceiling. He thought about the trials, the contests, and the moments that had defined him. He realized that being human, thoughtful, brave, compassionate was enough to stand among the greatest. And somewhere in the palace above, Lyra smiled quietly to herself. The youngest human had done what few could. He had captured her attention, her respect, and perhaps in time her trust and partnership. The morning light spread over Zetheria, soft and golden. The twin suns rose slowly, glinting across the rivers and mountains, painting the world in gentle colors. Today was not just another trial. Today, the humans and Zetherians would come together in a ceremony to celebrate the end of the contests and the bonds that had been formed. Taran stood quietly with the human delegation, adjusting his uniform. The past days had been filled with challenges, surprises, and lessons. He had faced puzzles, obstacles, and trials, all under the watchful eyes of Princess Lyra and the Zetherians. Yet despite the tension and uncertainty, he had never wavered in his calm determination. Captain Elias stood nearby, giving his team one final word of encouragement. "You have represented humanity with honor," he said. "Remember, it is not only skill that matters, but heart. You have shown both. Be proud." It would be about recognition, understanding, and connection. The humans and Zetherians gathered in the great ceremonial hall, a massive space with walls of flowing crystal that reflected light in every color imaginable. Tables were set with glowing dishes, and decorations highlighted the artistry of Zetherian culture. Warriors and dignitaries from both species filled the hall, their faces curious and expectant. Princess Lyra entered from a raised platform at one end of the hall. Her presence was magnetic, commanding attention even without speaking. The room fell silent as she moved forward. She scanned the gathered humans, her gaze lingering on the youngest warrior, Taran. "Today," Lyra began, her voice calm but firm, "we celebrate the courage, skill, and spirit of those who have participated in our trials. These contests are not only tests of strength, but of heart, intelligence, and character." Lyra continued, "Many have impressed us, but one among you has shown qualities rare even among the greatest warriors. This human has faced every trial with courage, intelligence, and care for others. He has led his team not by strength alone, but by example." The hall fell silent, all attention on the young human who had already surprised so many. Lyra stepped closer. "I have observed closely. I have seen how he acts in moments of challenge, how he thinks when others hesitate, how he cares when others focus only on themselves. He embodies the qualities we value most." He had done his best, but he had not imagined this. "Therefore," Lyra said, her voice strong, "I have chosen him." Silence followed, then a ripple of astonished cheers. Taran froze for a moment, unsure if he had heard correctly. Then slowly he bowed his head respectfully. "Princess Lyra," he began, his voice quiet but steady, "I am honored beyond words. I will do my best to live up to your trust. It is about recognition of who you are, your courage, your intelligence, your heart. These are qualities I value above all." He looked at his teammates, who smiled and whispered congratulations. Even the older humans, once doubtful of his youth, now looked at him with admiration. Lyra raised her hand, signaling for quiet. "This day is not only about choice, but about unity. Humans have shown us that courage, intelligence, and compassion are as powerful as any strength. We celebrate not just one individual, but the potential of your species. That greatness does not always come from power or skill alone. It comes from heart, from thought, and from the willingness to act for others. You have shown me that, human. And that is why I have chosen you." Later, as the sun set and the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the palace, Taran stood on a terrace beside Lyra. The view was breathtaking. Rivers shimmered like molten silver, mountains glowed with soft light, and the forests below seemed alive with movement. "You have changed how we see humans," Lyra said quietly. "You have shown that even the youngest and smallest can rise to greatness when guided by courage, thought, and heart. You have shown what is possible when two worlds meet with respect and understanding. That is rare. That is extraordinary." And now he had earned the respect and trust of an alien people. Later that evening, the humans gathered for a final meal. They shared stories, laughed, and reflected on the events that had unfolded. Taran listened quietly, thinking about the lessons he had learned. Courage was not only facing danger, it was helping others, thinking clearly and acting with heart. Intelligence was not only solving puzzles, it was understanding people, cultures, and the consequences of choices. And kindness was the quality that made all the difference. Lyra watched from a distance, noting the way humans interacted with each other. She saw that their strength lay not just in their bodies, but in their hearts. Taran had shown that these qualities could shine even in the most difficult of circumstances. As night deepened, the twin moons reflecting across the palace walls, Taran returned to his quarters. He looked out over the glowing forests, thinking of the journey that had brought him here. He had faced trials that tested not just skill, but character. He had guided his team, demonstrated courage and intelligence, and earned recognition from a people far older and wiser than himself. He thought of Lyra, standing beside him now in shared understanding. He realized that this was only the beginning, not just for him, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. Their actions, their heart, and their spirit could create bonds, build understanding, and inspire others in ways that strength alone never could. In the quiet of the night, Taran smiled. He had been chosen not because of size, youth, or power, but because he had acted with integrity, intelligence, and heart. That was a victory greater than any contest could measure. Above, Lyra's thoughts lingered on him. She had watched many beings in her lifetime, but few had shown the combination of courage, thought, and heart that Taran possessed. She knew that humanity's future on Zetheria, and perhaps among the stars, would be brighter because of this young human who had dared to be true to himself. The palace was calm now, the celebration winding down. Taran lay in his bed, gazing at the softly glowing ceiling. He thought of the humans he had led, the Zetherians he had met, and the choices that had brought him to this moment. And he felt a quiet certainty, being human with all their flaws and strengths was enough. More than enough to stand tall among the greatest. And somewhere in the palace, Lyra looked out at the horizon. She saw not just a young human warrior, but a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what courage, intelligence, and heart could achieve. She smiled softly, knowing that the youngest human had not only won her respect, but also the chance to shape the future for both their peoples. The twin moons rose higher, casting silver light over the glowing forests and rivers. Humans and Zetherians alike had witnessed something extraordinary, the triumph of courage, thought, and heart over fear and doubt. The youngest human had proven that greatness was not measured by size or strength alone, but by the choices one made, the care one showed, and the courage to act when it mattered most. And in that moment, Taran and Lyra stood side by side, looking toward a future filled with possibility, unity, and understanding. Two worlds had come together, and humanity had truly shown its brightest self.